Hi everyone, so it is Wednesday night, the 18th of November 2020, and I'm doing a market scan and I wanted to kind of take you through it. So this is meant more for newer, younger traders, but potentially also for ideas for more experienced traders. So I've got a daily chart on the top and a weekly chart at the bottom. And what I really want you to take away from this kind of is going to be to observe the flow of price action. That's really a big part of this. I'm going to take the horizontal levels away for a moment and just have a look at what price is doing. So once in a while, I like to mix up candlesticks with OHLC bars. I like to mix up colors. I like to change time frames. And the reason I do that is because it helps break up any ideas that I might have locked into, any biases or beliefs that I might have locked into, and it helps break that up. And changing that perspective can often refresh my view on things. And this is a great way to do it, because I always find this is a great way to see the flow of things. So if we have a look at the dollar index at the moment, there's a couple of things. The purpose of this video is that I'm seeing what looks like, and it could die, because this is what happens with the markets. They start moving and then they just stall. But it looks as though there's some really nice movements, flow kind of starting to occur in the markets. So the dollar index is sitting on a level of key support. Let's call it 92. It is looking very much as though it's going to break that. Until it breaks it, it doesn't matter. But it is looking very intent on doing that. And that's pretty cool, because once it breaks that level, there could be a really nice movement down towards 90. And then that means that we'll get some really, at least for the next few months, next few weeks at least, we should get some decent trends. Euro dollar is also heading up into 1.19 and also looks very keen on breaking that level and pushing on to 1.2 and further. So that looks good. Looking at Campbell, all right, which is sterling against US dollar, this looks very, very nice. This was a setup and I missed it. This was a beautiful swing trade setup. If you look at it, what makes it good, it's a nice little pullback into the previous highs, into recent support, nice little bullish candle, and it's kind of heading on, and that's very nice systematic kind of buying. That's a really good sign. Okay, it's a nice little bullish symbol as well. And of course, coming into, there's going to be some resistance that we're coming into, but that was pretty good. I quite like the look of that. The Australian dollar, US dollar, this was another setup I missed. I just haven't been looking for swing trades the last 2 or 3 weeks because of the US elections and because of the general just laziness of the markets, not of me so much. The markets just don't really seem to be keen. But today's candle's nice and bullish, and this candle was nice and bullish. They support the idea. The market is very keen on pushing higher. Okay, you can see here, if you look at the weekly, we are coming back into those old highs, but the market is much more above the moving averages than below. Okay, QB dollar is pushing it. This is moving like stink, as my friend used to say. Okay, this one is much more bullish. That was a really, really nice setup. Whoosh, completely missed it. That was Friday. Sometimes on Fridays I'll pass on setups because you've got to get through the whole weekend, something can happen, but they were legitimate. In isolation, they were legitimate trade setups. And they look pretty obvious in hindsight, which can be just as frustrating to me as it might be to a beginner. But they were really, really good setups. And the reason I have the weekly down here is because if both the daily and the weekly are flowing in the same direction to the upside or to the downside, sometimes it's just a lot easier to see when you have it here. Okay, and you can see the candlestick looking really nice and bullish. There is, it's coming into historic resistance over here to the left. In 2018, 2019, I beg your pardon, but it's also heading towards 0.7. It's looking good though. I like the look of that. Dollar yen. So dollar yen had a smart reaction to this. This is kind of an election reaction, a bit of dollar strength there, and has kind of effectively resumed its longer term flow to the downside. It is, I would say, sufficiently breaking through. If I bring up the key levels, breaking through that monthly level, now heading on towards the next monthly level, being closer down towards 100, 101 and 100 monthly level. So that's really good. It's dripping down. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this should continue to head lower. This level's been holding quite a while. Bank of Japan might talk about intervention and then they might push back, but this is definitely keen on heading lower. So that I'm liking the look of it as in terms of those intraday opportunities. I think they're pretty cool. To the downside, dollar Swissy. okay, is starting to creep lower. It's also similar to, it's largely inversely correlated to euro dollar. It's not 100% inversely correlated. It's a 95%. At a glance, it looks the same, but then when you look closer, dollar Swissy is not always doing the same thing euro dollar is doing. We have dollar CAD. Dollar CAD coming into historical support, but starting to creep lower. So we haven't had this agreements between all the major and minor currencies, all these, let's call them the majors for now, in complete agreement with them in a long time, maybe not even since 2019, where we have a weaker dollar here. So we're seeing euro, GBP, Aussie, Kiwi climb. We're seeing dollar yen, dollar CAD, dollar Swissy drop. We haven't had that kind of agreement. We've had dollar yen, dollar Swissy, dollar CAD do their own thing, and then we've had kind of correlation between the others. So moving along, euro GBP is dripping to the downside. That's pretty cool. You can see it's below the moving averages on the weekly. It's also below the moving averages on the daily. And you can see that really nice flat level support here. Price pulled back into it, produced a bearish candle, and it's unfolding in that direction. So what I want you to do is view the moving averages as, forget about price action for a moment, but that's where the flow of closed price is ultimately going. And therefore, regardless of what we're seeing in terms of volatility on a day-to-day basis, we're seeing a momentum of the market going in those directions. I don't like this one. So this one, the problem is prices bobbing above and below the moving averages. There is no clear momentum, so I'm going to leave that. Then we start coming to Euro Swissy, which is trying to climb to the upside, but is definitely struggling with a clear level of resistance there. I'm going to pass on that. Euro CAD is also bobbing above and below the moving averages. No clear direction there. Euro Aussie is pushing to the downside. There's a strong, it's much more visible on that weekly time frame to the downside. And I wouldn't really get too comfortable into that until it breaks below that level. If it breaks below it. Euro Kiwi definitely starting to head lower. Beautiful, flowing very much to the downside. It's broken these lows here, which is a good sign. It's now free effectively to head down to the next key level. So Euro Kiwi should certainly be on an intraday shopping list. Pound Yen. Above and below the moving averages. It is sitting above this cluster of highs, but it's not looking good. And it's bobbing above and below the moving averages on the weekly. So it's basically saying, don't really have any clear direction now. Pound Swissy, you can see, is pushing to the upside. It's not super strong. It's definitely got some resistance there at 1.22, but it's above the moving averages on the lower chart and on the upper chart, meaning that it's flowing to the upside on both the weekly and daily. Again, although this is slowly drifting to the upside, Pound CAD is not great. Not really loving that one so much. Pound Aussie is going to be similar to Euro Aussie. No real clear direction. I'm going to pass on that. It's on top of the moving averages on the weekly and on the daily. It's going sideways. It's one to avoid. Pound Kiwi, on the other hand, is pushing down. It's got a definite level of support here, but I think that once it breaks through that, I think there's a very strong likelihood it's going to have some solid moves further down. Same as Euro Kiwi on the shopping list. Aussie Kiwi is beautiful, actually. It's been trending really nicely. There's been some valid swing setups, and I've missed all of them. So let's just move on from that because I've skipped all of them, and they're all very, very nice. Heavily bearish Aussie Kiwi looks good. So on my shopping list at the moment for intraday trading. Aussie CAD is climbing, but it's also coming into massive resistance up here, and it doesn't look as bullish, as excited. It really doesn't look that way at the moment, even on the weekly. So I'm going to pass on that. Aussie Swissy is looking, again, it wants to run up into that. And the Swissy charts so far have all been running into resistance. It looks a bit more obvious when you look at it there on that weekly chart. It's going to bump heads up against that. So I'm cautious around that. But once we can get past those, it might pick up momentum. Again, bobbing above and below the moving averages on both the weekly and the daily. Aussie yen not looking good. So right now, the yen charts are not looking that appealing. Kiwi CAD, that is very bullish. It looks really good. It's breaking through these highs. On my weekly analysis video, market outlook, the Kiwi dollar was there and it's following through. It's looking very good. It's breaking free. So I think we should appreciate that right now the New Zealand dollar might be the best thing we've got for a while, and to keep an eye on that. Okay, even here on Kiwi Swissy, it's still pushing to the upside. Kiwi yen, it's going sideways. And again, now that makes sense because all the yen charts so far are kind of listless, and Kiwi yen is the most bullish of the both, and it's still kind of going sideways. CAD yen is again sideways, above and below the moving averages on the daily, and well on top of the moving averages on the weekly. That just means there is no clear direction. So there should be no trading. I'm confident that I should say that there should be no intraday trading on any of the JPY charts right now, with the exception of dollar yen. Okay, with the exception of dollar yen. Even here, though, I can see Swissy yen coming back down, but again, it's going to come into a level of support, which is also strong resistance, and it might very well bounce back from that. So I'm very cautious about the Swissy charts in general as well. The other ones are looking pretty good, but Swissy and yen charts looking a bit dodgy. In fact, what I have found to be very interesting is a couple of these. Beautiful. So Singapore dollar, US dollar, Singapore dollar trending amazingly, depending on what your spreads are. It's really good. As well as, let's look at a few of these ones. DKK, Danish krona, Norwegian krona, a couple of those. Okay, so not Danish krona. There was one that I saw that I really liked the look of it. Was it dollar sec? Yeah, it's also bearish. But dollar sing looking really good. Very happy with that one as well. Okay, moving on to commodities. Gold, not going anywhere at the moment. And it's shifting below the moving averages, so I'm more inclined to expect it to drop to the downside at some point soon. I've expressed my opinion on that one on the weekly video. Silver on top of the moving averages, there's nothing there for intraday traders. Copper, more bullish than bearish, but it's also struggling more than it should be, but it is more bullish than bearish. Platinum, looking beautiful. There we go. Really, really nice bullish engulfing candle there. It's back up above the moving averages. It's got some strong resistance up at 1,000 there, but it looks appealing. Palladium, no. So why? Because it's just going sideways. It's completely range bound here. It doesn't look good. Okay, let's look at crude oil. Crude oil is attempting to climb to the upside. It's still within a range, but it is a little bit more bullish than bearish, but it's not great. Brent is looking bullish. That's pretty good. And it's breaking through this resistance here. I like that. So that's a good sign. Like crude also, but Brent so far looking good. I'm cautiously bullish on that. Considering how bearish I've been on it for a while, I'm now switching that price action. Bitcoin. So let's talk about Bitcoin. The fact that it hasn't gone completely overextended from the moving averages on the daily means to me that this is actually sustainable. It looks a little bit overextended on the weekly, but the daily looks really good. So I predict 20,000. That's where it's going. I predict it might ramp up to 20,000 and then take a bit of a breather. But that's where I'm of the opinion it's going to hit up to. And then, actually, if it does a normal healthy retracement, it's going to come back down to 13,000 or 12,000, somewhere in that area. There we go. Ethereum will follow its way up. It's 500 is what it's trying to get past. If it breaks through 500, it goes straight to 550. Let's look at the Dow. This is very interesting to me because ordinarily this looks to be building up to a breakout. Nice round number, 30,000. These are higher lows going into it. It doesn't mean it'll succeed, but it is going to attempt, I think, to break out through that level, the Dow. The S&P, not so much. It's just going to keep going up. It's going to try to get past that level. If the Dow does a breakout, everything else, and a successful breakout, everything else will go with it. The NASDAQ is really going to struggle with this let's call it between 12,000 and 12,500. It's had 3 rejections of those levels. Excuse me, it's got higher weekly lows, so it could ultimately succeed. So the Dow breakout and the NASDAQ breakout could both occur at the same time. Could happen, interestingly enough. Russell 2000 looking very nice and bullish and very close to breakout. Very healthy. That spike aside, that looks amazingly healthy. So a little bit overextended on that, but happy overextended. Let's look at the FTSE. FTSE is got to get past these previous highs here at 6,065, which is a significant level. But it's a really strong recovery, so it might want to build up and then maybe break out. Let's keep an ear to the ground on that one. The DAX also looks like it's going to try to do a flat level breakout there. Let's look at the French CAC, also looking strong and bullish. And you know, they are overdue. I'm just talking specifically about the fact that this price action, although it's had a boost up, it is really looking quite hungry to go further. It doesn't mean it won't stall eventually, but right now it's not. Sometimes you get a boost up like that and then immediately price action starts to just fail. It's not doing that. It's like, can I keep going? Even if it's crawling on its hands and knees, it looks like it wants to do that. Nikkei as well. So Nikkei might form a potential rejection candle there at 25,000. Nice round number. 26,000 even. and want to come back down to test prior resistance for support at 24,000, which is down here. Perfectly acceptable if it wants to do that. The markets are looking fantastically bullish. I've been bearish for a long time, and of course, sod's law, that could be the point at which the markets now just collapse. Of course, that can happen. But for a long time, they've been they get bullish and then they just stall. Whereas these are already overextended. They are definitely due for a retracement on the monthly time frames, but their dailies are looking. The dailies are looking in isolation, looking nice and healthy. And, I've said it before, I think the NASDAQ is overdue for an extension. I believe so. It's going to come down to 10,000. There's a reckoning coming. But at the same time, when you look closer, or you look under the magnifying glass at the daily, it looks really happy. It looks really good. Okay, and that was it. I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to wrap this up. Sorry for the length of the video. It's 15 minutes. But I wanted to walk you through my thinking of price action and where I'm going to be focusing. There's definitely some currency pairs I really like the look of for intraday stuff. And most of those are the Kiwi ones, but there's some dollar ones as well that look good. And then the ones where they're on top of the moving averages on the daily and the weekly, I'll just stay away from those. They're just terrible. And then on the indices, if I do intraday trading, it's probably to the upside, keeping an eye on key levels, and then very cautious with regards to taking profits. But they're not looking, there's no strong signs of failure here yet. We'll have to see where we are by the end of the week. But so far, they really are looking pretty optimistic. Have a good week, everyone.